When you look at the oil and gas downstream sector, it's easy to get lost in this sprawling maze of pipes, tanks, and towers. But if you're an investor, you need to see it for what it really is, a machine. A machine that's been meticulously engineered to do one thing, turn crude oil into profit. So let's pop the hood and see how this engine actually works. Right. So when you see a massive facility like this one, try not to think of it as just an industrial plant. You should be thinking of it as a powerful economic motor. Because underneath all of that mind-boggling complexity, there's a very clear financial logic at play, designed to squeeze value out of every single stage. And that's exactly what we're going to decode today. And that brings us to the big question, right? In an operation this huge, with hundreds of different variables, where are the real keys to profit? What are the specific levers that an operator pulls, and more importantly, that an investor should be watching to really drive financial performance? Well, that's what we're here to figure out. First things first, we have to start at the very beginning, right in the operational core. Because honestly, before you can even begin to talk about margins or market share, you have to nail the fundamentals of processing. This is ground zero. It's where all future value is either built or lost. So the whole journey kicks off with these three basic stages. Crude oil comes in, it gets separated into its basic parts through distillation, and then those parts get chemically changed or cracked into more useful stuff. It's this massive, non-stop process, and it is the absolute bedrock of the entire business. Now for an investor, this is what's absolutely crucial. Profitability starts with simple but powerful metrics. Take tank availability. This number tells you if the plant can even operate. If that number drops by just a few percentage points, that's a direct hit to your ability to produce anything. Then you've got incremental cost per unit. Think of that as your basic efficiency score. And percentage of batches rejected? Come on, that's just money down the drain, plain and simple. If you get these right, you've got a solid foundation to build on. All right, let's move on to the next stage of the game. Once you've efficiently made your basic products, the focus completely shifts to maximizing their value. This part of the journey is all about turning those basic refinery outputs into high-margin products that are ready for the customer. And these two images, they capture that whole value chain perfectly. On one side, you have the creation of value right there at the plant. On the other, you have the monetization of that value as the products finally head out to the market. The entire business is about making the most profit possible on that journey between these 2 points. And this right here, this is the primary value-add stage. Petrochemical production, this is where the real magic happens. It's about taking lower-value stuff from the refining process, things like naphtha, and transforming it into the high-value building blocks for literally everything from plastics to specialized chemicals. This is how you create some serious margin uplift. So the KPIs you watch here really reflect that dual focus. You're still keeping a close eye on operational things like plant uptime. That's non-negotiable, right? You can't sell what you don't produce. But look at monomer yield. That's basically your chemical efficiency score. How much of the good, high-value stuff you're making from your raw materials. A 1% improvement there can literally translate to millions in profit. And then you see how these numbers are directly tied to what happens in the market. How much you sell, your market share, and of course, customer satisfaction. It's a clear chain of value all the way from the molecule to the market.
But when you get right down to it, it all boils down to this one number: gross margin per cubic meter. This single metric cuts through all the noise. It tells you exactly how much profit you're actually capturing on every single unit you sell. In this part of the business, this is the ultimate scoreboard.
Okay, so we've talked about creating value and then maximizing your margins. But, and this is a big but, protecting that value is just as important. This is where things like reliability, maintenance, and risk management come in. And trust me, these are not just cost centers. They are absolutely essential for protecting that bottom line.
This requires a critical mindset shift. See, every single dollar that's spent on good safety systems, smart maintenance programs, and responsible waste management isn't a cost. It's an investment. It's an investment you make to prevent the multi-million-dollar losses that would come from a single major incident, a big environmental fine, or an unplanned shutdown. And for an investor, you have to understand the difference between leading and lagging indicators. Lagging indicators, like the number of spills or workplace injuries, they tell you about failures that have already happened. It's important to track, sure, but the damage is already done. Leading indicators, on the other hand, like the number of safety inspections or the percentage of maintenance that's planned ahead of time, these are predictive.
They tell you if a company is getting ahead of the curve and actively preventing those costly failures from ever happening in the first place. This chart really shows you the financial payoff of being proactive. Just look at the relationship here. A high percentage of planned work, that's a leading indicator, it directly leads to higher operational availability. And here's the kicker. It also leads to a lower overall maintenance cost per unit. Why? Because you're avoiding all those expensive, chaotic emergency repairs. So, let's pull all of this together now. We've seen how a company creates value with core efficiency, how it boosts that value through marketing, and how it protects it all through reliability. The final piece of the puzzle is connecting all of that operational data to the ultimate goal, maximizing commercial value out in the real world. This is where it all comes together. The traders and marketers in a room like this, they aren't just taking wild guesses. Every decision they make is powered by real-time data streaming in from the plant. When they know their exact production costs, their available capacity, and their operational risks down to the minute, it allows them to make much smarter and way more profitable trades and sales in a super volatile market. And that really is the main takeaway here. If you truly want to understand the financial performance of a downstream business, you have to understand the operational metrics that are driving it. Success is never an accident in this business. It is measured and it is managed, one KPI at a time. So there you have it. From the second that barrel of crude oil arrives to the moment the profit finally hits the bank account, the entire process is just a calculated strategy. It's a constant balancing act between three things: driving efficiency at the core, adding value in the market, and managing risk every step of the way. And that leaves us with one final, pretty important thought. As the world starts to shift toward new forms of energy, these fundamental principles of operational excellence, they're not going away. So the crucial question for any investor has to be, how will these metrics adapt? What new KPIs are going to define who wins and who loses in the energy system of tomorrow?